So in the lib folder, the main.dart file is the entry point of the app. And here you can see they have some boilerplate code to start with. So we'll remove all of this and start from scratch. I'll also remove this and then also remove this. And you'll also see that there's an error in the test directory. And this is because we removed the widget that was in main.dart file. So what we're going to do for now is just comment all of this out. Now let's go back to main.dart. So every Dart program starts with a main function, and this is similar to many programming languages as well. And then what we do is we run a function called runApp. And let's look at what it says here. So if I hover over it, it says, so this function essentially creates the root widget for the widget hierarchy. So Flutter and also something like React, or you can think of a DOM in HTML, they all have a tree structure. So there is a root widget, and then there are multiple widgets nested inside. So what this function does is it takes in the root widget and then essentially renders it on the screen. So our first widget we'll use is a widget called MaterialApp. And this will takes in, so let's see what happens if we just save that. Okay, one thing to add is that in Flutter, whenever you add commas and you click on save, it will format the code for you. So if I don't have a comma here, you can see that it's formatted in one line, but if I add a comma, then it will format it in multiple lines. So what is the MaterialApp widget? So Flutter ships with a Material UI kit and an iOS UI kit. The Material UI kit is called MaterialApp, and then the iOS kit is called Cupertino app. What this means, and you can see here at the top that it imported the packages for us as we typed them. And what this means is that anything under the Cupertino app widget will have the style of an iOS UI kit, and anything under the MaterialApp widget will have the style of a MaterialApp. So we'll just go back to a MaterialApp for now. And then I'll remove the import statement for Cupertino app. Now this MaterialApp takes in a home property, and this takes in a widget data type. And essentially in Flutter, everything is a widget. So you can have a text widget, you can have an image widget, a MaterialApp widget, and so on. So the first widget we'll add is called a scaffold. And a scaffold is a skeleton to your application. Now to kind of show you what everything looks like right now, let's actually run the application. So at the bottom right, we can see here it says Chrome. And if I click on this, it shows me all the available devices that I can run the application on. So I have Chrome. I can choose macOS to run this as the native macOS app. I have also my phone connected, so I can run it on my iPhone, or I can start an iOS simulator, and I can also start an Android emulator. So for now, I'll just use Chrome. And then I'll go to Run at the top left, and then click on Run without debugging. And this will take some time to run the server. Alternatively, other ways to run the application is from the terminal. If you type Flutter devices, this will show you the available devices. So here it says 3 connected devices. You have the iPhone, the macOS desktop, and the Chrome web browser. And if I want to run it from the command line, I do Flutter run -d for device, and then I can say, for example, macOS. And this will run the native macOS app. I can do the same thing for Chrome and my iPhone as well. Now you can see here, it's just an empty screen for now, and that's because we haven't really rendered anything. It's just an empty scaffold. And what the scaffold is you can think of it as a skeleton of a screen. So usually every screen would start off with a scaffold widget. You can choose not to, but it helps you render different elements in the screen. And I'll show you how the scaffold widget could be useful. So for example, we can add an app bar. So here I can add an app bar widget. and then I'll add a title. In it, I'll add a text widget, and let's say hello world. And you can see at the top there is an app bar widget. And then everything that's inside here, you can use a body for that. So if I do here container, so actually this should be inside of scaffold and not app bar. So under app bar, I'll do body, and then I'll say container, and then color, let's say colors.red. And you can see that everything in the middle became red. I'll remove this for now. Another useful property, for example, is a floating action button. So if I do floating action button, I can add a callback and a child. Let's add an icon, icons.add. So I'm just showing you that what the scaffold widget could be used for. And you can see here there's this floating action button added to the bottom right. Now let's remove all of this for now because we don't really need it. Now you can also see at the top right, there's this debug banner saying that this app is running in debug mode. If you want to hide that, you can just do debug show checked mode banner and then set it to false. Let's also set the default font for our application to be the font that we added. So to do that, there is a theme property available to us. This theme property by default has theme data.light. So if I save this, nothing changes. Now there's also theme data.dark, and you can see that the background changed colors. Now we can also add a custom theme data object and then give it our own configuration. So for example, I can add font family, and then I'll say Fira code. That means that any text widget in our application will have the font Fira code by default. So again, if I add, let's say add in the body, I'll add a center widget, and then I'll give it a text widget hello world. You can see that the font of this widget is Fira code. So usually you don't write everything inside of the main application or the main method. What you want to do is extract your application into different widgets. Let's quickly look at the structure of the application. So at the very top level, we have the portfolio widget, which renders a material app, and that renders a scaffold widget, which has an app bar, a header, badges, projects, and footer. So as you can see in the application, the app bar is the widget at the top, then the header is under it, and then badges, projects, and footer. Now let's see how we can translate this into code. So Flutter gives us two types of widgets that we can create. We have stateless widgets and stateful widgets. If we want to create a stateless widget, we do STL and then enter, and then the cursor will allow us to type the name of the widget. So we'll call it portfolio. Now, stateless widgets are widgets that just display data. They do not have any internal state to manage, while stateful widgets have an internal state or data that can change over time. As an example, when you create a new Flutter project, you will see that there is a counter app example where you can click on a button and then the counter increments. Now, being able to increment this counter and display the new state on the screen requires a stateful widget. However, for this project, we're not going to need to work with stateful widgets. So we'll look at that in a later video. Also, if you're not familiar with class keywords, so this is object-oriented programming, and I will be touching upon object-oriented programming in Dart in a later video as well. But for now, all you need to know is that this is how you create a stateless widget, and you don't need to manually write this. You can always use the shortcuts. And here you can see that there is a build function or a method, and this is called to render the data on the screen. So as you can see here, we're rendering an empty container. Now let's extract the MaterialApp widget and put it into the new widget that we created. So I'll go here, paste this, and then I'll change the comma into a semicolon. And then in the run app, we will render the portfolio widget. So I'll call portfolio, and then I'll put a comma at the end. And as you can see in the screen, the text widget is still displayed. Now let's look at the design that we have, and let's start off by creating the app bar at the top. So in the Scaffold widget, we have the app bar property, and then we can create an app bar widget. And as you can see here, the app bar widget has an elevation by default. So you can see that there's a bit of shadow. So I want to remove that. So in order to do that, I can add an elevation of 0. I'll also change the background color to be transparent. So I'll say color or background color to be colors.transparent. Let's also add my name at the top. So in the title property, we'll say text, then I'll add my name. And then if I save this, so the name actually appears, but the color of the text itself is white. So let's make the color black. So here I'll add a style property, and I'll add the text style widget, give it a color of colors.black. So you can see that the name appeared at the top. Now I want the name not to be in the center, I want it to be all the way in the left. So in order to do that, in the app bar widget, we can say center title to false. And now we have the name on the left. So the next step is to create the header, badges, projects, and footer. So the way that these are rendered are in a column format. So you can see that we have the header first, and then the badges, projects, and so on. So instead of this text property or text widget in the center, we will add a column widget. Now the column widget, rather than taking one child, it will take an array of children or an array of widgets. So let's say, for example, we add a text widget right here, and then I'll say hello. So you can see that this widget appeared here. Now there's one issue that we might face. So if I try to copy this, then I'll do this and then copy again, and then save that. So once the items in the column overflowed the screen, you can see that we have gotten an error here. Now to fix that, we have to wrap the column with a single child scroll view widget. And when we do this, you'll see that we no longer have an error, and we can actually scroll in the column. Now let's remove all of these hello widgets. So I'll just do this, remove that, and then save. So now in order to create the header, the badges, and projects and footer widgets, rather than creating it all in the same place here, I will extract them into separate methods as part of the class. So we'll have one method for each. So let's say widget underscore header. And then for now, we want to just return a placeholder. So I'll return a sized box dot shrink. And then let's do one for badges, one for projects, and one for footer. So here I'll call this badges. Let's make it lowercase. And then the next, we'll make it projects. And the next footer. Now, if you're familiar with React, this is like rendering null. So basically you're saying I don't want to render anything, so this is essentially just a placeholder. And what sizebox is, it creates a box that will become, or sizebox.shrink specifically creates a box that will become as small as its parent allows it. So you can think of this as an empty box essentially. Now size boxes are useful if you want to add some spacing. So as you can see here, we have some spacing between different widgets. So to do that, we can use a sized box and add a height property. But if we don't want to render anything, we will do sizebox.shrink. So let's actually render all of these widgets inside of the column. So here I can call underscore header underscore badges underscore projects and underscore footer.